Hey, this is Rich Valcourt here. I'm in Southampton on Holyoke Water Works Land. This is part of where we're practicing the carbon smart forestry. We're going to show you some of the silvicultural techniques and how we do it on the ground. So the particulars of this stand that we're in here is we have mixed hardwood species, mostly between the ranges of 10 to 15 inches, and then we have scattered large diameter trees that have been left. And then you have a hemlock stalking at scattered amounts in between all these mixed hardwoods. The hemlock do have heavy damage from hemlock woolly adelgid. So this is a great spot to practice carbon smart forestry since you have the large trees and then you have those smaller diameter trees. And then we also do have some hemlocks that have actually died and fallen to the ground, which is contributing to the down woody debris and standing dead trees for carbon smart forestry practices. The goal here is that during the logging, we really want to keep this hemlock whole intact on the ground and keep that standing there just as it is and let it fall down naturally and break down over time naturally and slowly, which is slowly releasing carbon back into the atmosphere. And then you have this large oak tree, which is a good carbon sink right here, storing carbon. And then what we're going to do is in the mixed hardwoods is remove most of the hemlock and any of the low quality hardwoods. And then most of the trees left will be desirable, healthy crowned hardwoods that should see optimal growth rates over time. This is a good example of the majority of the stand and what we're looking to do in removing most of the lower quality hemlock. And what we're looking to do is get this hemlock out and try and get new, younger, vigorous trees to fill in the gap. If you find an area where you have some hardwoods that are desirable tree, we thinned around it to open it up so that it'll see better growth rates. In this stand here, what we had, there was a good stocking of oak in the 10 to 15 inch range, in mixed with black birch and red maple as well. And then we had these larger diameter pines. Most of them were low quality pine trees. It was a good area where we knew we had vigorous oaks around the pines and we knew that they could use extra light and use some more room. So it was a perfect place to remove these white pine and take what was merchantable for logs out, and then if it wasn't merchantable wood, we left it on the ground here. You can see in front of me, this is wood that was left here purposely, since it was non-merchantable and it was going to also help with the dead wood pool and leaving wood on the ground. It worked out well. This is an example of a patch cut that was done 3 years ago. It's filled in well with a mixture of hardwood species. These species are going to grow well over the next 10 years, 20-year period, and you should see optimal growth rates. Again, relating this back to carbon sequestration, these younger, smaller trees are going to be what are mostly doing most of the, pulling of the CO2 out of the air over time, obviously. In particulars of this patch cut, it was flagged out and reserve trees were marked, and most of the target was in areas that had hemlock with high hemlock woolly adelgid infestation and damage. So another thing we did on this sale is we flagged the main roads. That's important to limit the amount of roads in the stand because that's going to limit your impact on the ground and the soils, which is a major pool for carbon. So on Holyoke we flag all the main roads and most of the spur roads and try to keep them to a minimum. Maintaining stable soil conditions and preventing any sedimentation or nutrient loading is very important and critical step in Holyoke Water Works forest management. This location here was a bridge stream crossing, and poles were put in place to mitigate the bank edges. Also behind me on the main skid road going up the hill, it was seeded after the completion of the job and water bars were put in place. In this area or in other areas of this project, we used matting from the topwood to lay in the skid roads to limit any kind of soil disturbance. Because again, with practicing smart carbon forestry, we want to limit any kind of disruption to the soil or limit it as much as we can. Other than a few spots in the main skid road, no bare mineral soil was exposed, and really the top layer of the forest floor really had very minimal impact. Also, I'm just going to touch base on logging supervision, which is kind of a very important part of the whole process. And that's just communicating with the logging operator and paying attention to the weather so that we can really minimize any rutting in the woods or on the main skid roads. We're at a more recently logged site. This was logged this past winter. This was a white pine stand. This was a small portion of a larger pine stand that we cut here. So, you know, again, we're always thinking about only cutting 20% within a stand type or a management unit. So this little bit heavier cutting here, the goal was to get some white pine regeneration in the understory and also maintain a well-stocked stand with larger trees through the stand. This is about a 30-inch white pine tree that was left here. The goal with a lot of these bigger trees in this site is to leave them here as legacy trees that will never be cut. And then over time, as the understory fills in, to rethin the overstory further. As you can see on this site, there's more than enough downwoody material